1 second. Just all right. I think
Okay.
maybe you can repeat your question.
You guys good?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, Angela. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you. And yourself?
I am great. I am great. How are you doing, Kimo?
I'm okay. I'm managing.
You look tired. Both of you look
I
tired,
had a long
actually.
day.
Oh, okay. You're at liberty to talk about it, or should we just get started with formalities, I guess? Quote unquote.
I mean, I think it's easy to like start with how you're how you are feeling, because it stems everything with how you're going to talk about yourself. So yeah, she could start from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, since we're all in Zambia, I'm assuming it's been a public holiday. It's been an extended weekend. And for someone who has a 9 to 5, it was wonderful. I kind of enjoyed the reprieve from day-to-day activities, but you know, being someone who also does stuff on the side, it was a good chance for me to get caught up with some of my side projects.
Oh, cool.
That's pretty much been it
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
So that's pretty much been your holiday.
So a working holiday.
A working holiday. Okay. I know a few other people that have been working as well. Great.
Yeah.
What have you been working on anyway? Are you at liberty to?
I'm wondering as well, what are those side projects? What's keeping
Sorry.
you?
Yeah, no, it's fine. So my 9 to 5, I'm a tester / software developer, but right now it's mostly testing because it's been catching up with backlog of stuff because they needed to hire a tester months ago, and anyway, HR problems. Then my side stuff kind of varies. I'm doing a little bit of project management in like a little project. I'm
Okay.
also doing a little bit of graphic design and website design as well. So I've got my hands in a few different pots because, as you know, in this day and age, you can't just have one income stream. So we do our best to try and I'm saying we, but I'm definitely talking about me. I'm trying my best to make sure that it's not just my salary coming in, because that's just not enough. That's just not enough to
It's never
sustain.
enough.
It's never enough to sustain. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on. I'm
Graphic
kind of
design caught
disappointed.
my attention.
It did. Okay, cool.
Yeah. How are you, like a pro? Are you a professional? Are you doing it?
So yeah,
big time?
no, let me say so far everything other than like my coding stuff, so far the other stuff is self-taught because I got into a point where I got very bored with coding. Not because I don't know, it just got to a point where I was like, nothing was really catching my attention. So then I started I realized that because I was doing websites on the side, right? Nothing crazy at this point. I was still doing like custom WordPress websites. So I was using WordPress templating and then going in and changing the code to fit what works best. Then I ended up finding myself in graphic design because I realized the websites could be better if I had an eye for design. So I took a couple of like YouTube courses type things, and yeah, I've done a couple projects, nothing crazy, just a couple of logos, some flyers, some manual redesigns like for legal spaces, and like posters, things like that. It was not a lot, but it brings in some side cash, which is what's important.
I understand, because in as much as people think it's so artistic, I feel how stressful it can be sometimes. How how the softwares are not user friendly at first. So I really do admire how people get into that. So okay. You said your software development. Are you just doing are you doing it also as a private business, or you are collaborating with other people, or are you involved with any sort of smaller startups?
So the software development, I'm not, to be honest right now, I'm not really doing software development on the side. The graphic design and the, oh, you mean like the web development, things like the website?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's smaller. It's like my own little business, kind of. It's
Oh,
not kind
okay.
of. That's exactly what it is. I'm not. I do not want to call myself a pro by any means because I think if there's one thing that every developer has gone through, especially someone like me who took a really long break from coding, is that imposter syndrome when you realize you don't
Mm-hmm.
know what things have
Yeah.
changed and yeah. So
Yeah,
that's definitely not what
and
my focus is. Sorry. Oh, it's
no, I
loud.
understand.
Yeah. So that's definitely not where my focus is right now, or that's definitely not where my focus has been, at least for the past couple of months.
Okay.
But I'm looking to start that back up again because, as I said before, revenue streams. Um, but that to me wasn't the most difficult thing. That's what where it got kind of a little boring for me. Web development is okay. I don't dislike web development as a field. I just prefer something that
Okay.
has a little more puzzle to it, right?
Mm.
Okay.
The funness of digging into something like data science, which is something I've started doing now.
Okay.
Because yeah, I realized after so Tumelo and I don't know whether we've gone into that, but okay, I know we haven't, but we met at AgriPredict back when I
Yeah.
was an intern. So
Sure.
that's where I got my first real taste of data and how you
How data
kind
is the
of
new oil.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, when I
Oh
was
boy.
in school, I'm sorry, I have a haphazard setup here. So when I was in school, it wasn't really a big thing. My entire course was pretty much just web development. And I mean, as I told you back then, it was mean stack. That's what I was trained on, which
Okay.
already in 2016 was old. So imagine graduating in 2020 and you've come out and they're telling all these developers, yeah, I know mean stack. That's what I can do for you. So
Mm.
that was a bit, yeah, I've kind of hit on so many things. Tell me what,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
someone
not
direct me to
exactly in
where
vogue.
you need me to
All
go.
right. No, it's super cool that you've pretty much touched on a lot of things in that regard. But I guess we could start with how you got started with software development. Like what not software development, but your journey within the tech space. Like how did it get started? When did you figure out that this is what you wanted to do? And when was that spark ignited? Was it like a certain moment in time when it was like, oh, okay, I really want to do this?
I don't think I can say that, but I think I can touch on it was more of a journey into realizing this is interesting and
Mhm.
I could maybe do something about it. I won't say it's my calling, I won't say the spark got lit in me, but it's
Yeah.
always been kind of around me, the whole idea of programming. So
Have
I
you
was a big
grown up in an environment? So sorry if I
uh,
that's just I didn't want to lose my point because there was a high chance I was going to forget.
mhm.
Have you always grown up in an environment where people have been in tech or have been heavily involved in technology?
So no, that's the thing. Not really. My mom
Mm.
studied agriculture and she's done business. My father is in the medical field, so not necessarily you think the most techie people in the world, but where I was going was that the school I went to, I was a big theater kid, but most
Okay.
importantly, the backstage theater. So the school, I was really lucky and I went to a really good school that had all this tech and all that, and a huge portion of that was the lighting. So the lighting, imagine a lighting box, like a control box with just like hundreds of switches, right? Think of like a sound engineer's board, but now for
Yeah.
lights. So I became kind of obsessed with it, and I was like, what? You could make it do so much. You could make it do so much. So what I used to do was I used to stage manage the whole play because that's I got really into it, and a good part of my
Oh,
job was then programming the lights for the entire show. So it would be like the light should come on at this time and go off at this time. And that's when I really started getting into understanding the idea that programming is really in every facet of our life. I mean,
True.
yeah, I can, yeah. So yeah, that's as I was saying before, that's when I realized programming, and pretty much I didn't have a name for it back then, but functions and subroutines were huge, and automation was a huge part of our everyday life.
Okay.
And as I said, when it was time for me to go to uni, I had two choices pretty much. I was thinking I'm either going something to do with med or I'm going something to do with tech. And I ended up landing on tech.
Nice. And was that here in Zambia?
No, so
Okay.
I decided to go to school in South Africa. Um, just because, well, okay, I'm Kenyan, I'm not actually Zambian. So my options were also to go back to Kenya,
Okay.
but I was looking to try something new, and all my classmates and everything were going to like the US and the UK and Canada. And quite frankly, that was not money we had.
Yeah.
So South Africa was a much cheaper choice, and a shorter degree was 3 years. So I didn't get that 1 year of exploration that you do in 4 year degrees. So yeah, went to school in SA for 3 years.
Nice. Are you at liberty to disclose which university you went to?
Yeah, sorry. It's,
Yeah.
not a secret at all. Monash University,
Ah, Monash.
now
Okay.
formerly Monash University, now IIE MSA. As far as when I left, I don't know if that has changed, but yeah, when I left, it was bought out by a
IIE
South
MSA.
African. Yes, but my degree is from Monash University. I have a degree from the Australian University,
Oh, nice.
not IIE MSA. So it changed, but my cohort were one of the last ones to actually get the Monash University degree. After that, actually, people didn't even get the same coursework. They were using a same different system. They were being taught different things. So yeah, one of the last.
Nice. Okay, great. And what was your experience like over there?
As a university
As
experience was
yeah,
wonderful. I think I learned a lot. I kind of grew as a person significantly.
yeah,
Um, in terms of education, why not be frank? Not be. It's not like I didn't learn anything,
yeah,
but after leaving, I realized, oh my gosh, I did not have to go to university for this. I definitely gained a lot from the experience, though, in soft skills like how to communicate with people effectively, how to communicate with people of different ages and do so in a respectful manner. But after I graduated, I realized that things like microverse, for example, that
yeah,
I didn't need a 3 year degree for this. I could have done something like microverse where they teach me for free and then I pay them back as soon as I
oh
make
yeah,
above a certain amount of money a month. Like that to me I was like, that's a great deal. That sounds like a fantastic way to get into the space without shelling out thousands and thousands and thousands.
yeah, true.
So, and as I said before, I did find some of their some of the ways they taught were a little outdated. By the
Yeah,
time I graduated was 2020, full in the middle of the pandemic, so that I didn't even get to go back for graduation. But I expected not to, I mean, at that time, once you got out of school, you realize what people were looking for was stuff like React and
oh yeah,
not even Angular anymore. They're looking for newer, more dynamic frameworks and languages.
yeah.
And as I said in the beginning, we were working with mean stack, which is so
Not in
not what
vogue.
you expect
Yeah,
for that day and age, not at
yeah,
all. So that was a bit disappointing once you got out there and you realized, oh, I'm already outdated and I just got into the game, but I'm already behind. So that
yeah.
was a bit disappointing, but all in all, I can't say that I regret the experience. I just wish I had all the information that I have now.
Yeah, true. No, I can relate. But is that like your overall take on the educational system as far as like computer science is concerned? You did study computer science, right? or was it software
Yes, I
engineering?
did.
Okay. Like, do you feel
It
like,
was
yeah.
oh, go on.
No, I was just gonna ask if you feel like we like everyone has to go to school and like attain a bachelor's degree or some kind of official certification when it comes to computer science, or is that something that you feel like is almost like supposed to be, for lack of a better term, second nature in today's day and age, just looking at the digital shift
So
that, yeah, we've gotten into.
absolutely, I
Yeah,
think to an extent, I absolutely agree with your statement. I've met so many people who did not go to school, who did not get that 4-year qualification or 3-year qualification or even a diploma, and they are eons ahead of me in terms of development and understanding
yeah,
tech in a way that I'm yet to reach, or have that immense passion for tech and saw that school is not what they needed to do. They just needed that practice.
yeah,
But I will say I'm seeing a shift specifically in places that are a bit more modern. They don't care about qualifications. They're just like, show me what you can do. Show me your GitHub. Show me. That's what's going to determine whether or not you'll be useful to this company. And I really love that, because for someone like me who's, for example, been through this educational system and is getting a certificate and then realized it's not necessarily necessary for you to have that in order to succeed in this space.
yeah.
For someone like me who then decides to start self-teaching some of these things, I see that as such a bonus for myself. It's such a confidence booster, because I know that the people who I'm looking to get jobs from care more about what I can do than what a piece of paper says. And I think I'm very, very, very awesome.
I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. And I'm glad, especially one of the companies I'm with considers skill before paper. So, I mean, that's how I got in the first place. But I'm glad it's happening now in more corporate levels. And if that's
Yeah.
the news, then that's great. But I've not heard of that in Zambian companies yet. Is it going on? Of any that you know about?
No.
Is anyone hiring based off of
I only know about
skill?
that for,
Huh?
I only heard about that for like, but no, it's not very common in Zambia, unless you make that's very clear. They still love high school, university, internship. Then you can start looking about maybe getting a regular job. But it's more like international companies that come here and they're hiring not even through procurement in Zambia, but they're using their procurement back in their home countries, not here. So
Okay.
that's clear yeah.
Yeah, a few startups are breaking ground in that regard, though, because I remember the first startup software development company I worked for didn't ask for credentials from me. They just asked for an experiential background and to show them what projects I worked on, and that was it. I got my start at a startup, solely based off projects that I had worked on in the past. So, yeah. And it was like, I think I only had about like a year's worth of experience in the actual industry, but I was still eligible in that regard. So yeah. Now, speaking of projects, what project did you work on in uni? What did you major in? Do you major or minor in?
So
Yeah.
yeah, my two majors, I did a double major in, gosh, it's been so long. It's a double major in software development and computer networks and security.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever worked for a networking company?
No.
Yeah.
So the one thing I know I've mentioned so many things, but I have many interests. I'm definitely interested in getting back into the cybersecurity part of things, because I remember that was one of, for me, some of the funner classes, more funner classes in uni. And I used to test well. I used to get great grades in those classes.
Yeah.
And once I got out of uni, and obviously, as I said, pandemic kind of forced me to stay here. My plan was to stay in South Africa. I had a whole interview lined up and everything, but I had to come back here because pandemic things. And the emphasis on cybersecurity is not that big here, right? The space is not that big. Everything is more right now to do with web development, data stuff, which is all good and well. I'm not here running against that, or logistics stuff to do with like Ulendo and Yango and stuff like that. Just making that function behind the scenes. But then the emphasis on cybersecurity and protecting people's data and making sure you are safe from simple things like just injection attacks and stuff like that. Just stuff that's not really that. There's not a huge focus on that here. So I kind of love sort of income, but now that I'm a bit more stable, that's definitely something I'm looking into, which is putting a lot on my plate, but that's how I like it.
Okay, great. Now I was going to ask in relation to data, there's this whole directive that's been going around regarding data security and if whether or not we should manage our data like locally or globally. What's your take on that? Do you feel like we have the capability or the infrastructure to like manage our data locally for at least as far as like the systems that we develop within the Zambian region or radius or other parameters? Like, do you feel like we should have all our data isolated to only this region, or is it okay to have it hosted outside this country as well?
I think the correct answer, right? The correct answer would be ideally locally, right? The whole point is you want to keep your people's data safe in a place that only you have access to and can control. But realistically, that's just not possible right now. Zambia is still very much a developing nation. Zambia is still a nation of not that many people, it's still very few in comparison to other African countries, and still growing and still trying to get that people connected, people online. I mean, the fact that mobile money made its way here just a few years ago, even though places like East Africa and Kenya, they've had it for decades. Yes, we're seeing a lot more data. Everybody has a lot more data about them on the internet, and people are putting themselves out there more. I don't know how else to say that, but a lot more data is being collected on the citizens of this nation. But realistically, we do not have the infrastructure to support anything like that right now, right? So most likely the best option is to have hosting in multiple locations and try as best as we can as we grow and as we try create that sort of that infrastructure that can support things like police databases and census information and key private citizen information. Do our best that as the country scales and as the tech space grows, and which it is growing in an incredible rate that is very shocking to me. Try wean ourselves off of international hosting just because, or international data management, so to speak, just because it's finally time for somebody to put their foot down and like stand up for ourselves, so to speak, and
I mean,
and
it's I've never heard of Zambia having a data breach or like confidential information leaking yet. I've not heard of anything too big. So I feel like we're still at the beginner level, but have you got any idea of a concept you could help, or not say help, have you got any ways you think Zambia should approach this issue, if at all our data management needs to start sorry, my question has a structure that I'm trying to create.
It's all right.
It's in, I mean to say, if Zambia is, which is a growing country in the technology field, how do you think we should approach data management, and how do you think we should handle, considering how in developed countries sometimes, like let's say for mega companies like Facebook and how they're really tightening up information is handled, how do you think Zambia should really learn and approach this issue, especially when it comes to storing personal information and companies storing confidential stuff? And what do you think would be a good starting approach for Zambia?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do my best to answer that question, because there's, I mean, so many different facets, I think, that will affect data management, how to even begin managing data
Go
as
for
it's
it.
going to start scaling this country. But I think the one thing but we know is definitely going to happen is the politicization. I can't speak, but the
It's okay.
politicization of data. We've seen it happen everywhere. We've seen it happen in places like Myanmar. We've seen it happen in places like China, where data that has been collected from citizens is then used to further oppress them or further oppress a specific group. So the thing that we can learn from the mistakes of the countries we've seen so far, even places like the US, is as this industry grows, so should the legislation around data management, right? If you limit the scope of how companies can use data and what data can even be, puts you on a pretty good footing in comparison to, so that we avoid some of the bigger disasters like we saw with Equifax and stuff like that in the US. So I
Okay.
think regardless of how this all begins, and I know I'm supposed to be speaking from a tech perspective, but
Yeah.
tech is more than just us in software development and web development and data management. It's a tool used to then achieve other things. So yeah, I think first, legislation definitely needs to work with the tech industry as it's expanding, and that involves electing officials who understand technology. So as political or as dividing as that might be, it's just true. So I think that may be important. But what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry. The question, if you don't mind.
Yeah. It was a long question.
Slightly.
Yeah, I think I managed to hear a significant amount. Yeah. I just wanted to know what lessons we have learned, because sometimes, as African nations, we are quick to claim ignorance, to say, oh my gosh, we haven't yet built the structure to support such systems. So if your personal information has leaked, there's always excuses. Like, but yeah, I think it's better if we learn from the first world countries making those mistakes, be better. Or yeah.
For me, that also includes, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep talking about this. For me, that also includes, even though Zambia, African nations in general tend to have much smaller budgets than our Western counterparts, but investing and not only investing money, but investing intelligently thought out strategies.
All right. So yeah, Angela, I was going to ask how your parents took your decision to be a software developer or to study computer science. Like, is it something that they were cool with? Is it something that they supported you with, or rather, maybe not supported, but like understood from the get-go? Or did you have to sort of make them see the light?
It was nah, that was not an issue. They
Yeah.
knew, because as much as I said it was either med or computer science, the third choice was something to do with either, let's call it third and fourth choice. I was either going to study English or I was going to study theater because those are two major points and two major things I loved in my life. And that's
Okay.
where I was kind of leaning. And then I was told, oh, you need to make money. So
Yeah.
tech was kind of a consolation prize, but a consolation prize I was pretty happy with.
Yeah.
But no, they were fully supportive from the get-go. They understood the value of it, but I will say there's definitely a confusion. We can do IT. I can't troubleshoot your Windows computer. I wish I could. So there was definitely a little bit of confusion there when I tried, because it was like,
Yeah.
oh, she studies IT. Oh, great. Maybe she could
Oh,
come
yeah.
and help me set up my help me do my Wi-Fi plan for my office building. I was like, oh, no, that was like one project in uni. I'm not like proficient in that, but
The
yeah,
common
other than that, they were
misconception,
just
eh?
supportive. They knew computers. Yeah, they knew
Yeah.
computers was good. So that's where it landed, and that they were fine with it.
Okay, great. Yeah. How have you handled that misconception? Like, have you ever worked for a quote unquote IT company that pretty much thinks you're like, or perceives you as like a jack of all trades and doesn't really consider things like specialization, and would look at you and ask you to sort of like configure a printer or like troubleshoot a Wi-Fi connectivity issue or
Yeah.
configure a switch in that regard? Like, has it ever gotten
So
to? Yeah.
I didn't, it was an internship. I interned at, it wasn't the whole company. The people who knew what I was doing knew what I was doing and they were fine with that. But
Yeah.
then some of the older, less technically inclined employees kind of could not differentiate the difference between at the time I was working as a what was it, a software engineer, products engineer, something like that, as an
Yeah.
intern though, and someone who helped them save their word as a PDF. So that was a bit frustrating because I was also the intern. I was ripe for just being asked to do inane things, but yeah, I got pretty used to it. Hey, Angela, how they asked me to sign this electronically. What does that mean? That took up a chunk of my day that I did not want taken up.
Yeah.
For things I genuinely just consider as IT literacy skills that people should have before entering the workforce. But
Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, the people who knew what I was there to do let me do what I needed to do, and that was code.
Nice. Oh, and then just going back to like is it safe to say your first love, which is theater or drama, visual art?
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
something
sure.
that you're still pursuing?
Oh my gosh, no. So I found
Yeah.
respite in that by starting graphic design,
Oh,
by
okay.
doing things that are a little bit more artistic, layout design. I don't draw or anything like that, but I'm
Yeah.
very good at figuring out a layout and choosing fonts and change, which sounds a little basic, but there's a certain
No, it's a part of graphic design. It's a sect
there's
as
a
well.
certain absolutely. There's a certain relaxation that I get from it. I get to
Yeah.
blast my rock music and just
Nice.
play with the space between two letters for like 3 hours, and that's great to me.
Yeah,
So I wish I could
get
have.
that. And it's underrated, sadly. People think
Absolutely.
maybe when they see the finished product, it's just like, well, you put two things together. They think you just slipped and clacked and clicked and stuff and just
Yeah.
assembled stuff, but it takes a lot of work.
Oh, it does. So much trial and error. So many pages in a single document. But yeah.
Do you have
I've never done
OCD
it, but
or?
I do admire it. Yeah.
You can finish. You can finish with your question, Kima. It's cool.
I don't know. What was the question?
Okay,
Go
cool. I was gonna ask if Angela had or has OCD or is neurotic about, you know, the layout and like the UX
So I
process of
wouldn't
things.
call, I would
Yeah.
not call myself OCD because that's its own loaded term, because
I
I
mean,
don't want to say
just
that
going back to
because
your comment about blasting heavy metal or rock music and spending countless hours just, you know, trying to focus on the spacing of like letters and whatnot.
yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely have that side to me where if it, especially when it comes to something visual, because
Mhm.
once you kind of get yourself out of the terminal, so to speak, once you get out of yourself out of looking up lines and lines and lines of code, you realize most
The
people don't
back end.
understand that. Exactly. Once you get
Yeah.
out of the back end, once you get out of the white space, you realize that not everybody understands that. And then trying to crack, okay, let me say how I see it.
Yeah.
The way you try to crack a piece of code or try to understand why a small function is not working, or whatever,
Yeah.
is for me the same way I do that with graphic design. But the goal is communication, right? The goal is you're trying
Yeah.
to communicate an idea very simply, very quickly, to a certain group of people. So the spacing being off to me is the equivalent of having a freaking infinite loop or something,
Yeah.
because if I don't crack it, it just doesn't look good, and people don't look at it and don't actually internalize information that's on whatever medium you're, or whatever final product you're doing. I think that that's a pretty good analogy. That can make sense.
Nice. Is that primarily what you focus on? I mean, like during your day-to-day 9 to 5 job, is it
No, my
so
nine to
so?
five, I'm a tester.
Oh,
I'm a working as a software tester.
yeah,
I'm a support developer. So whenever they need somebody to come in with extra hands, that's what I'm there for. But right now, I have a lot of work back. As I said, there was like I was supposed to have been hired some time ago, but then
yeah,
they needed two testers, but there was an issue, and the single tester was struggling with the work for a while because it was a lot of a large workload. So right now we're just catching up, just catching up to the sheer amount of work there is in the department. But yeah, that's my 9 to 5
okay,
mostly.
awesome. Are you at liberty to talk a little bit more about your side hustle, or you know, your personal company or project?
Sure.
We're trying to dive into entrepreneurship a little bit more, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think you might be a first in that regard. You know, one of the first
Really?
guests we've had that's actually
Yeah.
working on a startup. So it'll be cool to gain a little bit more insight on that.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So I started Blue Hours, formerly Small Hours, due to Packer issues. Um, so I started Blue Hours during the pandemic. As I said, I got out of uni, pandemic was in full effect. Nobody was hiring. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody. And I graduated in May. I mean, virtually graduated. They played our names on a YouTube screen, and that was it. Because I couldn't go back to SA, and because it was on lockdown. So it was a hiring freeze for everybody everywhere. No one knew what was happening. People thought this was lasting 2 weeks. It did not last 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I was really struggling to try find income. So sorry about this. I decided to do something about it. Well, not really. My mom, who is pretty much my advisor in every single form, every single facet of my life. She was like, "You need to find a way to make money." So I did. I started by making websites, right? So I first started with
Yeah.
a couple family members. Nothing crazy, just like uh get which actually involved
Brochure
me learning a
style
little bit.
websites.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's informational stuff. I started
Yeah.
with my aunts, some family friends. I actually started with just as I said, WordPress, because WordPress templates are easy. I just try edit out of the box templates because I needed something that I could get out quickly, right? I'm not about to
Yeah.
spend days custom making you something that you don't need. So I started doing WordPress websites, and I realized I could probably make them fancier. So I started learning PHP because the WordPress's backend is PHP mostly.
Yep.
Then I started doing that a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, this is going well." Then I got, oh, it now doesn't exist anymore, but someone not mistakenly, unfortunately started their business, their e-commerce, their store, sorry, a physical brick and mortar store, like a month after lockdown. Technically is when, a month before lockdown, I mean. So, and this
Oh,
was not here, this was in Kenya. So
yeah.
she was like, I need you to turn this into an e-commerce business for me. So that was technically my first big client. But even then, I still use like an out-of-the-box solution that I then
Yeah.
customized for her, because once again, I'm not trying to spend hours,
No need to reinvent the
hundreds
wheel.
of hours on something. No, WooCommerce exists. I don't understand why I need to get more complicated into it. But
Exactly.
yeah, then I got another couple clients, and then I realized this is something. This could be something. I was coming out with websites really, really quickly. I was starting to understand how to outsource things that I didn't know how to do. For example, I had issues with, especially for the e-commerce business, I wasn't very good at web crawling or writing functions that could crawl and get pictures for me specifically for the store.
Mhm.
So I paid somebody to do that on Fiverr, and it was great. They came back to me in like 2 days with everything I needed. And that's when I started understanding things about cultivating relationships online and things like that.
Smart.
Then there's the next client I got was a friend of a friend of a friend who needed a website, but they just pretty much needed a website redesign, right? Not a brand new website. They pretty much needed a fresh new look. And that's when I realized that there's some really good money to be made in UI UX design.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they didn't have the words there. It just didn't look good enough that anybody wanted to stay on the website long enough to learn about the great work they were doing. So that was one of my first forays, I think, into graphic design or layout design. I spent a couple hours on YouTube learning the basics of graphic design and pretty much the fundamentals. And with my kind of creative background, I realized I had a knack for some of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of wrote that out until I finished the website. And that included custom posters for every page and making sure as I said, the graphics were sorted. So that was I think 2021, no, 2020, end of 2020, like November or so. And then 2021, by the way, keep in mind I'm doing this all while I'm working an internship
Mhm.
because dang, money has to be made.
Yeah.
Then after that, I pretty much started really getting into the more graphic design side of things. I paid for a Skillshare course. I started to really, really get into the short form course content or these short certificates online because they teach you a bunch of stuff that you don't need to necessarily go to university for.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of those. Then I got a contract with a large NGO, a Germany-based NGO, but they also have a presence here to redesign those manuals. I don't know, earlier I spoke about manuals. So essentially they had toolkits for lawyers and they were law-based toolkits, legal stuff, legal advocacy. And it was just words. It was just pages and pages of words, and they needed to make it more visual so that people could care about the content. Because what was happening is that they were distributing these materials, and the materials had, people had worked really hard on researching and writing and editing and proofreading and making sure that the words were good, but they overlooked the visual stuff. So we came in and I actually came in subcontracted under someone else.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was, I think, one of my bigger projects because it was several months of work and it involved consultations and revisions upon revisions. And it needed to abide by international company guidelines, which were super complicated and involved, you can't have this to the right, otherwise it reminds people of this and this and this. So yeah. And then
Yeah.
I pretty much have rode that wave all the way to 2022, doing posters and stickers and logos and just a
But
few things here and there.
sorry to cut you short. In UI UX design, I've heard this old thing. I'm not sure if it's taboo or whatever. I'm wondering. Okay, I'll start by saying what it is. They say every reader like starts by viewing text from the top right and downwards. Is that like 100% true, or is that something that you've been told as well, as far as like UI UX
Top
design is
right
concerned?
onwards.
Yeah,
Ah,
like our natural cognitive stimuli, like starts with
yeah.
us viewing
I could
text
I
from.
could buy that.
Yeah.
I could buy that, but more than anything, it all has to do with weight and scale.
Mm.
Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen this meme going around of like the text is very simple. It just goes, you'll read this first, then
yeah,
this
yeah,
second, then this
yeah.
third, then this
Then
last. Even
yeah,
though it's like the last one is at the very top.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that could be true about the top right thing,
yeah.
maybe. I've never heard about it because I am not formally trained, but um I've definitely noticed it's more to do with scale and weight and position, and yeah, more than anything else.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you could carry on.
I
I was
I think
just
Or
I'm even parched. So ask me a different
lost your train
question.
of
Ask me
thought.
something else. You
but
said what are the weird things you've experienced in the
I was
tech
only talking
space?
about any fiery round of questions if there's any.
Oh, weird experiences that Angela
Yeah,
has
yeah.
faced.
I was wondering if you've had any of those questions asked to you. Yeah. Have you ever like, okay, this is a bit funny. Okay, not funny, but a bit edgy. Have you ever like used the dark web? Have you ever felt the need to go there?
I mean, who hasn't, right? Wait, am I weird for having gone to the dark web? I feel like as soon as I learned
Yeah.
about it as a thing, the first thing I did was go on the dark web.
Did
Oh,
you
you
use
Are you kidding
have.
me?
did you use a
Great.
Absolutely,
personal
I
machine?
have. Sorry?
Did you use a personal machine and
Yes. And I had a
what?
VPN.
Oh,
And I had
okay,
a
okay,
VPN.
safe. The
I
last
have a
time,
VPN on my phone, on my every device that exists in my life has a VPN. I have paid for one for like 5 years at least. I
yeah,
can't imagine going
Wow.
online without a VPN.
awesome.
Have you guys not been on the dark web?
Mhm.
I have been on the dark web. I used
Yeah,
What was
the
your
Tor browser,
experience like?
but I did not use a
exactly.
VPN.
You should use a VPN and Tor, both of those things in conjunction.
And my PC was hacked.
I'm too scared, you guys.
Like
Sorry.
5 minutes into the dark web, and my screen like turned to static. I had to shut down my
Yeah.
I would
laptop.
use
Yeah.
the VPN.
Tor, the dark web doesn't work just with Tor. I feel like you need a second layer of security with that because
Totally.
my
Because you
God.
didn't use a VPN.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You should totally do it, Kimba. It's not that scary. Okay, it is scary, but it's not that bad. Not if you take the steps to protect yourself. It's mostly interesting to see the weird things people get into on the internet, man. People
Yeah.
are weird.
People are doing weird stuff on the internet. They're
People are
like,
doing weird stuff on the
I'm
internet.
not. I don't even know if I'm at liberty to like disclose what I
Yeah,
saw
me neither.
when I went there. So it's
Absolutely.
just
No,
I'll
we're
just
not talking about it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. I agree. We'll just leave it at that. People are weird. People are
Please
totally
People are
weird on the
weird.
internet.
tell. Please tell.
No, no. Please,
No,
this is going to be put on the internet. Absolutely not.
exactly. You visit the dark web for yourself, Kima, and
That's not
if you
enough.
make it out
You let us
alive,
know.
yeah, if you make it out alive, come back and let us know.
If you come back unscathed,
Okay.
Unscathed, yeah, with
How? I
stories from the
can't
other
do
side.
it. I'm too
I was gonna ask.
you guys are daredevils.
Yeah, yeah. Angela, have you done?
Can't possibly.
Hello, Kima. Oh, okay. Anyway, Angela, I was gonna ask. Have you done back-end development on an enterprise level?
No, not to the level I'd like.
Yeah.
It was very surface level. right? Technically, yes, but it was very surface level to the point where I can't say I was an owner of any part of that. That I was pretty much just doing surface level fixes,
Yeah.
which is something that's very frustrating because I do enjoy the back end more than I. I've realized about me. The funny thing is, I like the back end and I like the front end, but I do not like them together. I'd rather be just a back end
Do it.
developer
Yeah.
or just a front end developer. I don't want to do full stack.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. So that's definitely where I want to head, even with I'm trying to come up with interesting ideas that merge my interests. So I'm trying to think of something that has to do with data and security
Yeah.
and graphic design and back-end development, and how can I put that all together into something that I'd be proud of.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to come up with a project right now in my free time to kind of work on.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually hits close to home because I've been working with data analytics and visualization as well, and doing front end development for the most part. At this new gig I got. So yeah, trying to marry the
That's
two
cool.
and bridge the two is something I've been working on as well. Yeah. Have you looked into like open source data science or data visualization and analytics tools? Something like Google Analytics, or I'm trying to think of another one. Superset, maybe. Have you heard of?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely a bit less in the last couple because this job of mine is actually it was a recent hire. It's only been a
Mhm.
couple months, so I've been kind of, as I said, trying to catch up with work.
Yeah.
But I see myself in the next definitely few months. I wish I could show you. I have a big chart, like a physical A3 piece of paper that I've
Okay.
divided into a calendar
Yeah.
to sort out my learning in the next 3 months because I'm just tired of doing the same thing. Testing is monotonous. I need to do something a little bit more challenging for myself.
We could
That's
talk
what I'm
about
interested
that well, on the surface level, if you don't mind. What's
Sure.
a day in Angela's life like? As far as like your 9 to 5 is concerned, like
Sure.
do you structure your testing procedures, or I mean you could fill
Yeah,
this in.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So it's definitely, I'm actually working on 2 projects right now in the same company, but
Yeah.
for 2 different purposes. Um, it's definitely we're definitely very methodical about it. We don't just test out of nowhere. There's a Kanban board. There are all these different tools that we use to help us manage our issues. Sorry, that was funny. To manage our issues and see what we're going to be testing. We definitely work in sprints. It's very agile. Like it's not just random stuff. We write very extensive test cases. We run through them.
Mm.
The whole point is making sure it's our job to make sure that at the end of the day, the software is stable, right?
Yeah.
And the developers are not going to know the software is not stable unless we tell them. So definitely there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that. But all in all, it's very kind of relaxed. I get there, I take a look at what's on my lane, what needs to be tested for the day. If I have any further questions, I contact the developer. Other than that, I'm writing test cases and running and executing the test cases. Rinse and repeat for both projects. And then
Yeah.
we do a scrum at the end of the day, stand up at the end of the day, sorry. Wrap up, hopefully by 6. And
Oh wow.
rinse and repeat pretty much. So that's when I say it's a little bit monotonous. I understand the importance of it, especially because it is a project that's implemented nationwide and it's changed how Zambia deals with some of the, I can't talk too much about it, but it changed,
No, it's understandable.
it's definitely improved so much of Zambians' day-to-day lives, especially for management. So I'm happy about the work I'm doing. I'm having about the social capital, so to speak, that I'm getting from it. But in terms of a technical standpoint, there's a reason why I'm studying data. There's a reason why I'm trying so hard to do so much as well as my 9 to 5, it's because I want just a little bit more other than testing. I know people who love testing, and I love that for them.
Yeah.
I really do. But yeah, I don't think it's
Um,
after
yeah,
doing it, it's my passion.
one part we always touch on, which I think most of the time Tomato brings it up. But this time I'll steal the question, which is concerning AI, of course.
Mm.
Have you worked on any projects with deep learning, machine learning, or AI stuff?
Yes, I think, but not for long. I was an intern at the place where Tamela and I
Okay.
met, and I think there was a lot of um ML stuff going on there because it was all
Mhm.
predictive software, and it took pictures and analyzed and gave you an answer based on
Yeah,
that.
I just want to know
But
what your
unfortunately,
experience was like.
from a technical standpoint, it was fantastic. I learned so much in those few couple weeks. It was not that
Yeah.
long due to differences, but it was an amazing, amazing couple weeks. I learned so much about different technologies I never thought about. And I mean, this is me as a fresh graduate. I didn't know about things like Firebase. And Firebase is now, I don't understand how you don't know about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I learned so much about Python. I learned so much about Tensor. It was just, yeah, it was very eye-opening for me, and kind of gave me an inside look about on how AI is already embedded in every single part of our lives, but specifically now how it's looking in the future in Zambia. It was awesome, and if I could, I'd probably go back to an environment like that where that's the kind of stuff we're working on. Super future stuff.
Awesome. All right. So as far as like user testing is concerned, do you get to work with stakeholders? Like, do you mediate in that regard, or are you solely working with the developers?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I do most of my work is with the developers, but because the project, as I said, the main project I'm working on is a nationwide, Zambia-wide thing, I
Yeah.
do tend to, especially when sometimes we also help out the IT department because they get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Um, but I do end up doing meeting end users,
Mhm.
and also uh, I'm separating end users and stakeholders in this instance, even though I do know that those can be used synonymously or in other scenarios. But I do get to meet end users sometimes, and I do get to meet stakeholders, internal stakeholders, right? So
Yeah.
bosses of bosses of bosses who are interested in what the department is doing and interested in making sure that we're doing it well and doing it on time. Part
Yeah.
of my job and duties also include presenting our latest, the department's latest I don't want to call them improvements. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
latest improvements and latest the latest features,
Yeah.
presenting them to the department heads and people from other organizations who work like people like Chaz, you know, the bits are big people in Zambia. Presenting to them and showing them this is what we've been doing. Let us know if you have any questions, and then I kind of answer questions. So yes, a little bit of both, even though it isn't conventional for someone on the QA team, but it
Yeah.
works for us.
Okay, cool. And then what kind of format do you follow as far as like project management and just liaison with the client is concerned? Like, do you follow more agile approach, or is it like
It's
waterfall where it's like
very agile.
very
It's
agile? Yeah.
agile. It's very iterative. We go with 2 week sprints.
Oh, okay.
Scrum is definitely a huge part of what we do as well. As I said,
Yeah.
we do a daily end of the day. We have a daily stand up. You're gonna tell us what you did for today. You're gonna tell
Yeah.
us what issues you have, and you're gonna tell us what you're working on tomorrow. So everyone is definitely kept in check in terms of project management for my 9 to 5. Hey, Kima is back. So,
Hey, yay.
yes. So yeah, that's definitely a huge part, component of my day. Very agile, very iterative,
Yeah.
very uh small increments of good work rather than large steps of not very well done work.
Okay. And are you like responsible for documenting the experience of the business process as well? Or is
Yes,
that
to an extent. So I'm not the
yeah,
business analyst. There's
yeah,
definitely someone who's in charge. The product owner is also the BA. But oh wait, did you say documenting the business process?
the business process or the we'll start with the business process. Yeah, let's go with the business process.
Sure. The
Yeah,
business process to an extent, because we work mostly how we're evaluated is through our user stories, right? How many
yeah,
user stories have been met, because those are collected directly from end users. So the BA kind of collates them together. There's a system for that.
yeah,
And yeah, I also keep track of what has been completed, what hasn't been completed. And then documenting. When I was an intern, I actually did a lot of manual writing. For some
mhm.
reason, I'm going into manuals. For some reason, that's played a larger role in my career than I thought it would.
Yeah,
So I did like video manuals. I taught myself how to edit videos, which was fun. And then yeah, a little bit, not that much, not that much. Mostly I'm documenting testing stuff. Mostly testing.
okay, okay. Um, so would you say testing is sort of like an overlooked process in software development, or is
Yeah,
it, yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I think people tend to see testing as just like on a check you need to put on just so that yeah, so you can just check off a box so you can move on to the more interesting stuff.
yeah,
No, I'll tell you what testing is. Testing to me is the last line of defense, or call it second last line of defense,
yeah,
um, for developers, because we uncover so many things. Because I mean, a huge part of testing is also testing edge cases, right? You're not just testing the stuff you know to test. You're trying to break the system and figure out what's wrong with it,
yeah,
so that it can be fixed before we do it again and again and again. I think it's definitely overlooked. I think there's this culture of, ah man, they're just a tester. Who cares? They're just
mm,
testing. They don't actually code. They don't actually do anything.
yeah,
Um, which is not great, because it's in the community, even in the software development community, even in the tech space, testers are not seen as particularly important. But they are.
yeah,
My gosh, they are. And after putting my foot in it just for a few months, just the level of of things that are discovered and documented by testers is just massive.
yeah.
So I do think that it is overlooked.
And has it ever gotten to a point where, you know, something was like overlooked, and when you ran tests or wrote tests for this particular feature or part of the software, did you like uncover something really, really like vital, like a huge bottleneck
Yeah,
of sorts, where it's like, oh, well, if we had deployed it minus testing this thing, it would have been detrimental to the working process of the system?
yeah, that happened to me 2 weeks ago. This
Whoa.
is so. Remember, I
Yeah.
was saying about we work on sprints and stuff like that. Out of
Mhm.
nowhere, the developers pushed something,
Yeah.
and assuming that the system was stable, because
Mhm.
obviously they just made a change to one part of the system, the other part should be fine. When
Yeah.
we did our end-to-end testing, it was not fine. There was a huge component of the system that just was not working, which means they could not release the next version of the software that they wanted to release. That
Yeah.
was a blocker. That was a release blocker. So definitely that happens all the time.
Okay. I'm sure you're not at
Yeah,
liberty to disclose what exactly it was because you know it's a confidential thing. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I mean, I could dive into like more AI and like data-driven talk, but I feel like we could pick it up maybe next time if we ever do this again.
I
Uh
would love to do this again. This was
yeah,
so, I don't really, my issues, I don't really know a lot of people in the tech space in Zambia, which is a
yeah,
more of a reflection of me than anybody else. So this
yeah.
was cool. I don't get to discuss this with my friends are like accountants. I don't get to discuss this type of
I
stuff
know.
with
Sweet.
other people who care.
Yeah,
So yeah, definitely.
it's important for us to like network in this kind of format, and yeah. So I mean, unless you have any questions for us, or maybe Kima had a question. Did you have a question or two for Angela? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much you've asked already. I joined just a couple minutes ago.
I mean, you can still
But
ask away. We'll
I
let you
mean,
know.
I'm just looking for really surface level questions because most of the time I'm just wondering if you hadn't chosen this career or your part-time jobs or your side gigs, what else would you find yourself fitting into?
I touched on this before. I was definitely heading into a couple places, something creative. So definitely either theater or English, because I love English. That was like one of my favorite subjects in school. Or med. That was pretty much where I was going, but med wasn't exactly like my dream of dreams. I definitely wanted to do something super, super creative.
Okay.
Yeah. There's something, yeah. Something in my brain is tickled by the creativity that I ended up discovering in coding as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you still get to
No,
tickle
since you
that.
mentioned it's creative, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say she still gets to tickle that fancy with graphic design and like UI UX stuff as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
awesome.
I
Well,
have a
Okay.
question for you
Is there
guys,
any
if you don't
talent?
mind.
Yeah. Oh
sure.
yeah. Sure.
So remember how Kima, you brought it up back when the network connection was iffy, but you brought up any sort of weird things you'd experienced while being in the tech space. I have a weird thing, but it's not necessarily weird. It's just tied to the sexist nature that comes with this space.
I
Mm.
didn't want to open
Mhm.
up that Pandora's box, but
I don't want to.
just
That's a
just seeing
whole other. That's a whole other.
that I'm talking to two females about who are in the tech space, I do my best to like shy away from it, but
No,
you know,
come
God,
on.
That's a whole
Mm-hmm.
other episode. So no, I could do mine last, but I want to know for you guys what's definitely that like one like thing. It doesn't even have to be a question. It was just something that happened to you specifically in this space that made you go like, what? That's what I want to know
Yeah.
because that's exactly what happened to me, and I want to know if anything like that happened to you guys.
Okay, let's start with Tumelo since
oh no, I was gonna start with you,
any of
Kima.
your oh, what? I mean, I'm sure there's been so many, but just not right at the top of my head. The problem
Mm.
is they come to me in a very subtle way, and then sometimes I process them really slowly. Especially if you mean my own field, which is I would say engineering. I don't know. I think one thing I just not liked is how I don't know. It's sometimes your presence or your I don't know. Your presence sometimes can be looked at in a demeaning way, but it's not always apparent with everyone. And then it's just sometimes been comments which you wouldn't pick up at first, but then after a while you'd wonder what people meant, how it was phrased, if it was directed at you directly or if it was meant to women in general. If if there was one point I can speak of specifically would be just I think dealing with the senior engineers, like the people who've been there for like decades, who know their craft, who feel like, yeah, you coming in is just, I don't know, they feel like you're just snooping around, but yeah, you're not given an equal type of platform, like an equal chance to express yourself. So you just rather keep quiet and sit down and listen. So
Yeah,
yeah.
almost like you're invading their space, but no, you
Mm-hmm.
earned your way there. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't just
Yeah.
happen to enter the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, that's yeah. Tumela, what about you?
Well, I've had a lot that I can't really, I don't feel like I can get into, but I'll just speak of like the viewer friendly ones where it just goes back to that whole misconception of like uh, being ignorant about specialization and
Yeah.
compartmentalization as far as like software development like or computer science as a whole is like concerned, where it's like, oh, because you can write code, you probably know about like crypto, or you know how to like configure a switch, or you're probably, you know, good at like deciphering algorithms or whatever. Like, you know, or you probably know about, you know, robots or fintech or whatever. But it's like, no, dude, like, just like a doctor, I could, you know, I could
Oh, come to
specialize
think
in
of it, sorry.
yeah.
This Sunday, I was at church. Someone asked me if I could
Oh
make them
boy.
a robot.
because of the engineering
No,
title.
for real. Yeah, mechatronics. I do part robotics, but not as, I'm not even intending to do that like full time or deep into that, but it's something that I have plans with. But someone asked me, like, not a joke, like for real. He came and said, "Can you make me one?" And I was like, I was short for words, but I said, bring me the parts and I'll assemble them.
I look at that as more
If you
of a
can
compliment,
afford.
though, because it's not every day someone walks up to someone else and asks them to like build a robot. I would take that as a compliment.
No, I mean, it was just funny. It was the
Yeah.
way it just blew me off. Worst of was the approach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely understand on both of them, especially, oh my gosh, I keep forgetting. Do you know how many people have asked me what cryptocurrency I'm investing in? First of all, what makes you think I have enough money to buy one sort of any coin?
And NFTs as well. Don't get me started on the NFTs.
Gosh, trying to explain blockchain to someone who still has issues, once again, understanding anything to do with electronic signatures is mad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's
definitely
crazy.
have been in both of your shoes. And oh wait, let me tell you my story. So gosh, this is gonna take forever, but essentially I was working in a super corporate setting, very corporate, and somehow I found myself being the only female in the room that day, right? So it was just men, and it was mostly older men who, I think when I say older, it means I'm talking like 45 plus. So not old, but older men, older than me for sure. And it came to lunchtime, and one of the older guys comes up to me and asks me, "Hey, so you're the only woman here, right? So I'm gonna need you to serve the CEO lunch." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, no. So he mistook my look of just confusion to be confusion as to the process. So he starts going on and telling me, no, don't worry about it. It's real easy. He doesn't eat that much. So you just take it a plate, put a little bit of rice, put a little bit, like 2 pieces of chicken and some gravy. That's more than enough for him." I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is I'm not going to do that. Okay, here's the thing. I don't have an issue serving anybody lunch, but that was not in my job description. If it was in my job description, honey, I'm here on the buffet telling everybody to line up. I'm organizing the whole thing. That was not in my job description. I was there to work.
Words for you.
So I said no. And he looked so offended. He was like, "Why are you not doing this? You're the only woman here." I just wanted to tell him the man sits right there next to the kitchen. I'm sure he's served himself lunch before, because we're not 50, 45. Yeah, it's not the first time he's served himself lunch. So I had to leave and go like call somebody and tell them, you would not believe what just happened to me, because it's 2021 at this point. No, 2020 at this point. Yeah, it's 2020 and people are, I mean, it took me a while. And let me this is how I knew that I wasn't overreacting, is because when I told my dad, he said, that's a good thing you didn't serve him food, because then you would have set a precedent. And he had no right to ask you to serve him food as a grown man.
Yeah, I mean, that's shocking.
I was mad, right? And this is a corporate office. I will not name it, but it's a corporate prominent player in Zambia. And I was shock and awe.
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
that's and it's definitely not the first. It's definitely not going to be the last, but it was one of the most jarring moments of my career so far in terms of dealing with sexism in the workplace. Because
That's
my
what
gosh,
scares me sometimes
yeah,
because I intend to join. I intend to do something by. I think after September, I want to at least join a mine, and the mines I hear are one of the worst. So
yeah.
I'll see for myself. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. Would you consider would you consider yourself an advocate for women in tech? Since you've opened up the Pandora's box,
Absolutely.
are you trying to like revolutionize a
Why not?
movement that, yeah,
Absolutely. I think one of
yeah,
the reasons you tend to see women in the more non-code, so that's why you see a lot of women in testing, a lot of women in UI UX, in
yeah,
the non-coding parts of tech is because they want to be involved, but they were never exposed to stuff like this at a young age.
mm,
As soon as you put kids of all genders, I mean, obviously for this context, I'm specifically talking about women and girls, but if you put youth of all genders into a space where they can learn the same things and they're all pushed and encouraged and
yeah,
incentivized to continue in STEM, I mean, that's all it takes, right? That's all it takes. Because once again, women are wanting to do this. They just
yeah,
have no idea where to start. So they start the only way they know how, which is in the no code stuff.
mm,
QA, UI,
Mhm.
UX, customer lead and stuff like that, product management, product creation, and
yeah.
then work backwards. So yes, I would say I am an advocate.
Okay, excellent.
That's great.
I mean that's a good place to like end. I mean, on that note,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. I mean, unless you have any further questions or insight or
Probably I
contributions.
do, but
Yeah,
why don't we save that for the
for next time.
next episode?
Sure. Angela, it's been
It's been
freaking
such an
awesome.
amazing time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Likewise, I really enjoyed this chat, even though I was mostly just talking, not listen, not
I mean, that was
discuss
the intent. The intent
discussing. But
is to have
yeah,
whoever we have on
Yeah.
the forum loosen up and just,
yeah.
be as much of a
Mhm.
chatterbox as you can be. Let loose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely something I can do well. But thank you very much. This
awesome.
was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Likewise. Well,
Okay.
I guess this is bye. So you guys take care and
Thank
see you
you
Bye.
as
next time.
well. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.